there's a type of man more dangerous than a fool. It's the one who thinks he's wise. He walks into every room like he owns it. He talks loud, acts fast, and never questions his own judgment. But here's the truth no one dares to say to his face. He's the biggest liability in the room. Not because he's unintelligent, not because he didn't go to college or read the right books. No, the real danger is this. He keeps sabotaging his own life and doesn't even know it. He repeats the same bad decisions over and over, even when life screams at him to stop. He's driven by ego, blinded by pride, and ruled by emotions that hijack every opportunity he gets. And somehow, he still thinks he's in control. This isn't just foolishness, it's delusion with confidence. According to the raw truths of Machiavellian psychology, stupidity isn't about IQ. It's not about how smart you sound in a conversation or how many degrees you've got hanging on the wall. It's about judgment. It's about your ability to control your impulses, to see the bigger picture, and to evolve, especially when it's uncomfortable. A foolish man can't see beyond the next 5 minutes. He reacts before he thinks. He talks more than he listens. He believes showing strength means being loud. And worst of all, he gives away his power while thinking he's gaining it. He thinks he's the king, but really, he's a pawn that anyone can move, trigger, or manipulate with just the right push. And in a world where power is perception and silence is strategy, that kind of blindness is fatal. But here's the good news. Once you learn to recognize these traits, whether they show up in others or in yourself, you stop being controlled by them. You stop being baited, used, or misled. You stop playing the fool, because awareness is the beginning of control. So in this video, we're diving deep into the 10 brutal signs of a foolish man through the cold, calculated lens of Machiavellian psychology. Not to judge, but to awaken, so you can protect yourself, rise above the chaos, and become the kind of man who's not just respected, but quietly powerful. Let's get into it. Sign number 1. He always needs to prove himself. A foolish man is addicted to validation like it's a drug. He can't walk away from a meaningless argument. He has to win even if there's nothing worth winning. Whether it's over a petty insult, a minor disagreement, or someone simply disagreeing with him online, he'll fight, not because he's right, but because his ego demands a victory. He constantly seeks approval from people who offer no value to his life. Strangers, acquaintances, co-workers, even enemies. If someone questions his intelligence, his strength, or his status, he overreacts. He doesn't pause. He doesn't reflect. He jumps in with emotion, not strategy. And that's the trap. He doesn't realize that every time he tries to prove something, he's actually revealing something, his insecurity. He believes being loud equals being strong, that dominating a conversation means winning it, that being seen equals being respected. But in the eyes of wise men and powerful people, this kind of performance is transparent. Real power doesn't speak to be heard. It speaks when silence no longer serves a purpose. A wise man is a master of restraint. He lets others talk. He lets them assume. And while they're showing their hand, he's studying the room, gathering leverage, positioning himself. He knows that being underestimated is a weapon, because while others waste energy trying to look powerful, he's becoming powerful in silence. But the foolish man can't stomach being overlooked. He performs, he brags, he shares too much, thinking that exposing his every move makes him look impressive, when it really just makes him vulnerable. It's not real confidence, it's not true strength. It's someone pretending to be brave and strong to hide how scared or worried they really feel. And people pick up on it. Maybe they don't say anything, but deep down, they feel it. This man is trying too hard, and the more he tries, the weaker he looks. Because in the game of life, the ones who need to prove themselves constantly are usually the ones still trying to prove it to themselves. Sign number 2. He confuses emotion with power. A foolish man thinks that getting angry means he's strong, that raising his voice, slamming a door, or snapping back quickly shows that he's passionate and powerful. But the truth? It shows the exact opposite. Losing control doesn't make you look tough, it makes you look easy to control. He takes everything personally. A small comment feels like an attack. A simple disagreement feels like disrespect. And instead of thinking before he speaks, he reacts, fast, loud, emotional, but reacting isn't power. It's predictable. And when someone is predictable, they're easy to manipulate. People don't need to control him directly. They just need to push the right buttons. And he does the rest of the damage himself. He'll think he's standing up for himself, but really he's just walking straight into the trap, arguing when he should walk away, defending his pride when he should protect his peace, making emotional choices that cause long-term problems over short-term feelings. And in doing so, he shows everyone in the room something important. He can't manage himself. And in any setting, relationships, business, or life in general, that's a huge weakness. Because in the real world, the man who stays calm in chaos is the one who ends up in control. A wise man doesn't react to every insult. He doesn't let others pull his strings. He might feel the anger, but he pauses. He breathes, he thinks. He chooses when and how to respond. That's not weakness, that's strategy. That's power. The foolish man sees emotion as strength because he doesn't know any better. He was probably raised around other emotional men. He thinks yelling means you're serious, or that being triggered means you care. But the man who truly has power doesn't show it through anger. He shows it through control. Because if you can't lead yourself, you'll never lead anyone else. So remember this: if someone can control how you feel, they can control how you act. And if they can control how you act, they own your power. Don't give it away. Sign number 3. He tries to look strong instead of being strong. A foolish man is obsessed with looking powerful. He puffs out his chest, talks like a tough guy, tries to dominate conversations, and acts like the loudest one in the room is the leader. But real strength doesn't need to show off. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need an audience. He flexes because deep down, he's insecure. He wants to feel powerful, so he creates a show. But that's all it is, a performance, and people eventually see through it. True strength is quiet, it's calm, it's steady. You don't see a wise man shouting to be respected. You see him staying composed, staying focused, making moves without making noise. A lion doesn't need to roar to remind you it's dangerous. Its presence says enough. But a foolish man doesn't understand that. He confuses fear with respect, volume with authority, and intimidation with leadership. So what does he do? He tries to control people by being aggressive. He raises his voice to get attention. He uses anger or arrogance to cover up the fact that, beneath all the noise, he hasn't built anything solid. He wants to be the alpha, but he's not building discipline, not building wisdom, not building results. He's just putting on a mask and hoping no one sees through it. And here's the problem. People might pretend to respect him, but deep down they're just waiting for him to fall apart. Because real influence doesn't come from fear. It comes from being trusted, from being consistent, and from being in control, especially when things get hard. You don't need to dominate every room. You need to understand it, read it. A wise man watches before he speaks. He studies before he acts, because he's not trying to be impressive, he's trying to be effective. A foolish man spends his energy looking strong. A wise man invests his energy becoming strong. And in the long run, the one who builds quietly always outlasts the one who performs loudly. Sign number 4, he can't delay gratification. A foolish man wants everything now: the money, the fame, the success, the attention. He's chasing quick results, shortcuts, and easy wins, like a child reaching for candy. He doesn't want to wait, he doesn't want to suffer, he doesn't want to build, he just wants to have. But here's the truth. Anything real, anything powerful, anything that lasts takes time. And time demands patience, discipline, and focus. The foolish man doesn't understand that, so when life offers him comfort, he grabs it like a prize, not realizing it's actually a trap. He'll trade years of growth for 5 minutes of validation. He'll skip the hard path and take the easy one, then wonder why he keeps ending up in the same place. He doesn't realize shortcuts often lead in circles. He'll say things like, "I deserve this now, I don't need to wait. This one move will change everything." But it never does, because he's chasing dopamine, not development, pleasure, not purpose, comfort, not character. And here's what makes it worse. He thinks he's smart for getting results fast, but speed without direction? That's just chaos. It's like driving 100 miles an hour with no map. You'll get somewhere quickly, but it won't be where you want to be. The wise man sees it differently. He plays the long game. He's not worried about looking successful today. He's planting seeds for tomorrow. He's building slow, steady, and strong, because he knows empires aren't built overnight. They're built in the dark, brick by brick, while everyone else is distracted chasing likes and followers. The wise man is willing to be underestimated today, so he can't be ignored tomorrow. The foolish man, on the other hand, wants to be seen now, even if it costs him his future. He doesn't realize that discipline is freedom, that saying no to comfort today lets you say yes to greatness later. So remember this: if it's easy to get, it's easy to lose. If it's built fast, it usually falls faster. But if you build yourself with patience, no one can take that from you. Sign number 5. He always has to be the smartest person in the room. A foolish man can't sit quietly. He can't listen. He has to be heard. He has to be right. And he needs everyone to know just how smart or capable he is, even if nobody asked. He interrupts, over-explains, brags about his past, drops names, shows off what he knows, even when it's not relevant. Why? Because deep down, he's insecure, and he thinks that being loud means being respected. But here's the brutal truth. The more he talks, the more he exposes his need for validation. The more he pushes his intelligence, the more obvious it becomes that he's not as confident as he pretends to be. Because truly intelligent men don't need to say much. They don't prove, they position. They don't interrupt, they observe. They don't try to win attention, they control it by knowing when to speak and when to hold back. A wise man understands that knowledge is like a weapon. If you flash it around constantly, you give away your power. But if you wait, if you watch, if you listen, you get information others miss. You gather insight, you spot patterns. And then, when you do speak, people actually listen because they know it matters. But a foolish man, he wastes all his moves on trying to impress people who probably don't even care. He seeks attention, not control. He wants to look sharp, not actually be sharp. And in the process, he gives away all his leverage, for free. People might smile and nod, they might pretend to respect him. But inside, they're thinking, this guy needs to be seen. He's not stable, he's not strategic. The truly smart man, he doesn't chase the spotlight. He becomes the room's center of gravity through calm, confident presence, not noise. So here's the lesson. You don't need to prove how smart you are. You need to be so grounded, so focused, so composed, that your silence speaks louder than other people's bragging. That's power. And the man who understands this is always 10 steps ahead of the one who can't stop talking. Sign number 6. He thinks losing control means strength. A foolish man believes that showing emotion, especially anger, is a sign of power. He yells to feel heard. He explodes to look strong. He wants people to fear his reaction, thinking that means he's in control. But here's the truth. Real strength isn't shown through rage. It's shown through restraint. When a man loses control of his emotions, he's not intimidating, he's predictable. And predictability is weakness in any power game. The moment someone knows how to trigger you, how to push your buttons, how to get you off balance, you've already lost. Because now you're being controlled, even if you feel like you're fighting back. And this is where a lot of men get it wrong. They think being emotional means they're real, passionate, or not afraid to speak their mind. But what they're really showing is lack of discipline. And in a world ruled by strategy, not emotion, that makes them easy to defeat. A wise man doesn't react to every insult. He doesn't fall for every provocation. He doesn't need to respond just because someone tried to get a rise out of him. Why? Because he knows the moment he loses his cool, he's given the other person exactly what they wanted, proof that they're in his head. Emotional control is power. Silence is a weapon. Calmness under pressure is what really makes people nervous. You ever notice how the most dangerous man in the room is usually the quietest one? He's not posturing, he's not barking, he's just watching, calculating, letting others show their hand first. The foolish man, on the other hand, shows his whole deck every time he gets upset. He reveals what bothers him, what triggers him, what throws him off balance. And just like that, anyone can use it against him. He thinks he's standing up for himself, but really, he's being baited, again and again. So here's the lesson. The man who can't control his emotions will always be controlled by someone who can. Anger doesn't make you powerful, it makes you obvious. Losing control doesn't make you feared, it makes you forgettable. The wise man knows, you don't need to react to prove your power. You just need to stay centered long enough to make your next move count. Sign number 7. He confuses validation with value. A foolish man lives for the applause. He needs to be liked, noticed, praised, constantly. His mood depends on how people treat him. His confidence rises and falls based on who's watching and what they think. He craves validation like oxygen. Without it, he feels empty, invisible, unimportant. And here's where the trap begins. He starts changing himself just to be accepted. He adjusts his opinions, his behavior, even his identity, just to get approval from others. He becomes a people pleaser in disguise. He'll say what's popular instead of what's true. He'll sacrifice his values for attention. He'll become whatever others want, just to feel wanted. But here's the truth. Validation is borrowed. Value is built. Validation is temporary. It disappears the moment people lose interest. But value, real value, that's something no one can take from you, because it comes from who you are, not from who approves of you. The wise man knows this. He doesn't need the crowd to cheer. He doesn't need likes, compliments, or constant praise. He builds himself in silence. He works when no one's clapping. He stays grounded whether he's winning or invisible, because he understands. If I need their applause to feel alive, then I'm not in control. They are. The foolish man doesn't realize how dangerous this is. Every time he chases approval, he hands over a little more of his identity. He becomes a reflection of what others want, not a man of his own making. Eventually, he forgets who he even is, because his entire self-worth is built on other people's opinions. So, here's the hard truth. If the world's attention is the only thing holding your confidence together, it's only a matter of time before you fall apart. A wise man, on the other hand, builds confidence from competence. He builds self-worth from discipline, self-respect, and knowing what he stands for. He doesn't shrink to fit in. He doesn't perform to be accepted. He stays rooted, whether people love him or misunderstand him. Because power isn't about being liked. It's about being solid. So, ask yourself this. Are you building your value? Or are you just chasing someone else's approval? One leads to freedom. The other leads to slavery. Sign number 8. He keeps enemies close without a plan. A foolish man thinks keeping his enemies close is smart. He believes that by watching them all the time, he can control them. He lets dangerous people linger nearby, hoping to outsmart them just by being close. But here's the brutal reality. Snakes don't hiss from a distance, they strike from within. He thinks tolerance and patience are signs of wisdom. He believes that if he's friendly or diplomatic enough, his enemies won't hurt him. So he invites trouble into his circle, unknowingly handing over his power. The foolish man confuses exposure with immunity. Just because you see the snake doesn't mean it can't bite. On the other hand, a wise man doesn't just keep his enemies near. He studies them in silence. He learns their habits and patterns. He controls the environment so they can't surprise him. He's not naive. He's not careless. He's cautious, strategic, and patient. Because true control comes from making your enemies predictable, not just visible. You don't win by letting danger live inside your house. You win by making sure it can't move freely. A foolish man invites chaos into his life and then wonders why he's always betrayed. A wise man builds walls, sets rules, and knows when to strike or when to walk away. So remember this, being close to your enemies without a plan isn't strength, it's negligence. And in the game of power, negligence costs you everything. Sign 9. He confuses chaos with strength. A foolish man thinks that being unpredictable means being powerful. He believes that by stirring up confusion, making noise, and causing chaos, he's in control. But here's the truth. Chaos without a plan is just noise. Noise that hides weakness, not strength. He acts wild, breaks rules, and jumps from one thing to another without direction. He wants to seem like a storm, wild and unstoppable. But a storm that doesn't have a clear path just destroys everything, including itself. On the other hand, a wise man might seem unpredictable, but it's always on purpose. His moves look chaotic only because no one knows what he's planning. His unpredictability is like a storm guided by a captain who knows exactly where he's going. The foolish man lashes out, hoping to cover up his lack of real depth or strategy. He stirs conflicts to feel important, but he only creates noise that confuses everyone, including himself. True power is quiet, deliberate, and moves with purpose. It doesn't announce itself or demand attention. It shows up, does its work, and leaves before anyone even knows what happened. So if you want to avoid foolishness, don't mistake chaos for strength, don't confuse noise with power. Remember, the loudest storm is not the most powerful one. It's the one that's carefully controlled. Sign 10. He can't learn from his mistakes. A foolish man keeps making the same mistakes over and over. He acts like he'll get different results without changing anything. This isn't stubbornness. It's ignorance dressed up as confidence. He refuses to admit when he's wrong. He blames others, bad luck, or outside circumstances, instead of looking in the mirror, because admitting failure feels like weakness to him. But here's the harsh truth. If you don't learn from your failures, you're doomed to repeat them. A smart man studies every setback. He asks, what went wrong? What can I do better next time? He uses failure as a teacher, not an excuse. Every mistake is an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more prepared. But the foolish man, he's trapped in a loop. His pride blinds him, his ego shuts down his growth, and he keeps crashing into the same walls. This is the biggest trap of all, because it seals his downfall. If you want to rise above foolishness, you have to do the opposite. Face your mistakes head on, own them, learn everything they can teach you. That's how you turn failure into power. That's how you master yourself and your path. This final sign is the key to breaking free from the cycle of foolishness. If you've learned something valuable here, like, subscribe and share this video, because mastering yourself is the greatest victory of all.